The Imperial Palace of Goslar is a historical building complex at the foot of the Rammelsberg hill in the south of the town of Goslar, north of the Harz Mountains, central Germany. It covers an area of about 340 by 180 meters and stands. The palace grounds originally included the Kaiser House, the old collegiate church of St.Simon and St. Jude, the palace chapel of St. Ulrich and the church of Our Lady. The Kaiser House, which has been extensively restored in the late 19th century, was a favorite imperial residence, especially for the Salian emperors. As early as the 11th century, the buildings of the imperial palace had already so impressed the chronicler Lambert of Hersfeld that he described it as the most famous residence in the empire. Since 1992, the palace site, together with the Goslar's Old Town and the Rammelsberg, has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Location: the palace district is located in the southern part of the town of Goslar. The area is dominated on the west by the north-south oriented Kaiser House, the central building of the whole complex. To the north, it was once joined at right angles by the Church of Our Lady, separated by a small courtyard, but there is nothing left of the church today. Its foundations are under the path leading up to the Kaiser House. To the south, now connected by a 19th-century arcade to the Kaiser House, is the Chapel of St Ulrich. To the east, opposite the Kaiser House, stood the east-west aligned collegiate church of St.Simon and St. Jude, of which only the north porch remains. The plan of the church is, however, incorporated into the surface of the present-day car park. To the palace grounds belonged also the residential and working buildings of the canons, the houses of the ministeriales and the imperial entourage, the stables and storehouses. In addition, the whole area was surrounded by a wall. Individual buildings in the palace district. The earliest origins of the imperial palace are probably in a royal hunting lodge, as Adam of Bremen mentioned, for the Ottonian period. In 1005, Henry II erected a first imperial mansion in Goslar, which, due to the rich ore deposits under the nearby Rammelsberg, soon outstripped the nearby Palace of Werner. In the 1030s, Conrad II began to expand the site by laying the foundation stone for the Church of Our Lady. The district was completed and enjoyed its heyday under his son, Henry III. In 1048 he called to Goslar one of the foremost architects of his day, someone who later became Bishop of Osnabrück, Benno II. Under his expert guidance, the buildings that had been worked on since the 1040s were completed in the first half of the 1050s. A new Kaiser House, the one that we know today, and the collegiate church of St. Simon and St. Jude. Uncertain, however, is the date of the chapel dedicated to St. Ulrich. It is believed to have been built either during the time of Henry III, Henry V, or even Lothar III. The Kaiser House is 54 meters long and 18 meters wide and is the largest secular building of its time. The center of the building is its two-story hall. This contains two rooms on each floor of 47 meters long and 15 meters wide. Both had a beam ceiling, which was supported in the middle by a row of columns. The upper of the two rooms was reserved for the emperor and his immediate entourage, the lower room for courtiers of lesser rank. The imperial throne was set in the 7-meter-high upper story in the middle of the closed rear west wall. The east wall was pierced by a row of windows and gave a view of almost the entire palace district and the cathedral opposite. The central window of the upper floor also led to a columned balcony, either side of which were three arched windows. Incidentally, none of the window was glazed, as they were on the generally leeward side of the building. To the north, the whole building was adjoined by another, two-story residential building. Again, the upper floor was probably reserved for the imperial family. There was direct access from the upper room to the neighboring Church of Our Lady. The church was probably accessible through a gallery as well. Under Henry V, more structural changes were made to the Kaiser House at the beginning of the 12th century. He added the older, almost identical, second living quarters at the southern end of the building. In 1132 the hall collapsed, but was immediately rebuilt. At the same time a cross-section was added centrally over the entire height of building, and a porch was built in front of the center door on the ground floor that served as the first floor balcony. A gable now protruded from the hitherto slate-covered, steeply pitched roof. In addition, some windows were made closable and made a type of floor heating was installed. The window arches of the basement were replaced with rectangular windows. At the foot of the southern staircase, there are the remains of foundations that probably belonged to the first imperial mansion built by Henry II. Collegiate Church of St.Simon and St. Jude. The canons used to celebrate the services in a three-nave basilica with a transept, 3 east apses and westwork with 2 octagonal towers with a bell chamber between them and a simple narthex. Under the choir was a crypt, and over the intersection was another tower. The church was consecrated on the 2nd of July 1051 by Archbishop Herman of Cologne and dedicated to Simon the Zealot and Jude the Apostle, whose saint's day coincided with Henry III's birthday. At this time, the basilica was the largest Romanesque church east of the Rhine and became the model for many similar buildings in northern Germany. For example, the Brunswick Cathedral. A number of important religious dignitaries of the empire went out from this church. In 1819, the church, often called Goslar Cathedral, was sold for demolition. So-called cathedral porch. Around 1150 a porch was added in front of the north portal of the church, which remains the only part of the church preserved to this day. The former north door of the cathedral is now the back wall of the porch. The front of the lobby is decorated with 2 rows of niches with plaster sculptures that were originally colored. The top row portrays Madonna with Child in the middle, surrounded on both sides by chandeliers and angels, the original figures of angels having been lost and replaced by paintings. The bottom row shows, from left to right, Emperor Henry III, the patron saint of the cathedral, Simon, Matthew and Jude, as well as another, not clearly identifiable, imperial figure. In this hall today is a replica of the imperial throne, which was originally in the church. The original is in the vaults of the palace. The bronze side arms and backrest, which are ornamented with tendrils, date to the second half of the 11th century, whilst the sandstone plinths surrounding the actual seat are somewhat more recent. They are decorated by Romanesque animal figures and mythical creatures. The imperial throne was probably used by Henry IV. Apart from the throne of Charlemagne in Aachen, it is the only surviving throne of a Holy Roman Emperor from the Middle Ages. It was purchased in the 1840s by Prince Charles of Prussia and placed in the medieval-style monastery of Glienicke Palace in Potsdam. It subsequently came into the possession of the Hohenzollерns and was used as the imperial chair for Emperor William I at the opening of the first meeting of the new German Reichstag on the 21st of March 1871. Palace Chapel of St Ulrich. The plan of the double Chapel of St Ulrich forms a so-called Greek cross, with the equal arms and 3 east apses in the lower chapel. The upper chapel, however, is octagonal with only 1 eastern apse. Such a design is unique in Germany. A square opening above the cross connects the lower chapel with the upper one that was originally reserved for the imperial family. The 2 chapels are also connected by a stair tower that is nearly in between the north and the west arm of the cross. For this tower was the Chapel Ulrich, also by a walkway to the southern, younger, connected living room of the imperial family. Today a sarcophagus stands right in the center of the cross in the lower chapel, whose cover slab has a sculpture dating to about the middle of the 13th century. This is a life-size, horizontal figure of Henry III, his head on a pillow, a dog lying at his feet, in his right hand the scepter, in his left, the model of a church. The sarcophagus contains the heart of Henry III, which was interred in Goslar at his own request, and has been kept since 1884 in the Chapel of St. Ulrich. Church of Our Lady. The Church of Our Lady, actually the Palace Chapel of Sancti Mariae Virginis, or just Street Mary's Chapel, consisted of a central square building of about 10 meters length, onto which were joined the 3 eastern apses and, on the opposite side, of a westwork with 2 round towers. The building was 2 stories high. The ground floor, with access on the south side, was for the ordinary star. The upper story, probably designed with marble floor, was reserved, once again, for the imperial family and had a direct connection to the Kaiser House from the westwork. Curia Buildings. Curia Buildings also belonged to the Palace District. They were like, for example, the Vicariate Curia in the Domburg, the closer collegiate church grounds that were surrounded by a wall. Other Curia buildings, such as the von Steinberg and Erlenberg, bordered the square known as the Kaiserblick to the north and south of, between the collegiate church and the Kaiser House. Parish Church of St. Thomas in the northeastern corner of the Domburg was St. Thomas Church, built in the 11th century. It was the parish church of the Palace District. Historical events. A number of significant historical events have taken place in the Palace District, including, on the 11th of November 1050, Henry IV was born here. In the late summer of 1056, Pope Victor II was the guest of Henry III for several weeks in the Imperial Palace. He was present at his death in Bottfeld in the Harz and then organized the transfer of power to Henry's widow, Empress Agnes. At Pentecost in 1063, the Goslar precedence dispute led to a bloodbath in the cathedral, which was witnessed by the young Henry IV. A dispute broke out between Bishop Hesilo of Hildesheim and the abbot of Fulda, Widerad, over the seating arrangements, which ended in a half-day-long, bloody carnage. In summer 1073, Henry IV had to escape from the imperial palace to the nearby castle of Harzburg to flee the Saxon rebels. At Christmas 1075, Henry IV received in Goslar a letter from Pope Gregory VII, in which he threatened him with excommunication, thus starting the investiture controversy. In 1081, the anti-king to Henry IV, Hermann of Salm, was crowned and anointed in the palace. Between 1152 and 1188, the imperial palace was at times both a venue for, and at times the cause of, the dispute between Emperor Frederick I and Duke Henry the Lion. In July 1219, Frederick II held an imperial diet at the imperial palace and on that occasion received the imperial regalia that Otto IV had kept at the Harzburg. Ruin and restoration. 1253 was the last time a German king, William of Holland, resided at the palace. Thereafter it fell into decline. In 1289 a fire razed many of the buildings to the ground. The newest residential building was then demolished to its foundations. The following year the Palace District went into the possession of the town of Goslar. The hall was used for a long time as a court, partly by Goslar's sheriff and partly as a Saxon district court, but was increasingly abused as a warehouse or store. For example, both the halls of the Kaiser House and the older living quarters were used in the mid-16th century as a granary. The Chapel of St. Ulrich was used as a prison from 1575, something which at least helped to preserve it. The towers of the Church of Our Lady collapsed in 1672, and the rest of the church in 1722. Its stones were used as building material. The walls of the cathedral were already reported in 1331 as collapsing, and, in 1530, a tower fell down. In 1802 only a ruin was left, which was sold on the 19th of July 1819 for 1504 thalers for demolition. Only the north portal remains and still gives an impression of the former grandeur of the cathedral. In 1865 walls in the Kaiser House again fell down, and the possibility of demolition was on the agenda of Goslar's town council. This was averted and, instead, a state commission recommended that the building was restored. Construction work began on the 14th of August 1868. On the 15th of August 1875, Emperor William I paid a visit to the site and gave the project in effect a national blessing. In 1879 the restoration of the building was completed, but the result went over the top from today's perspective. The nationalistic enthusiasm of the times was being expressed in the building of monuments, and various architectural sins were committed. The arcade from the Kaiser House to the Chapel of St. Ulrich, the open stairway in front of the eastern face, the two replicas of bronze white lions, and the equestrian statues of the Emperor Barbarossa and William I are the most obvious visual examples. Even inside the building, the monumental, historicized murals created by Professor Hermann Wisleisners in the period 1879 to 1897 testify to the national feeling of exuberance of the time. In the years 1913–14 and again in 1922, archaeological investigations in the Palace district were carried out by Professor Uvio Hulscher, thanks to which the foundations of the Church of Our Lady were rediscovered. The palace today. The Imperial Palace is one of the most outstanding tourist attractions in the town of Goslar in the Harz region. The Kaiser House may be visited daily and guided tours are available, whilst the old quarters are used for administrative purposes and exhibitions. In addition, in the Goslar Museum, there are exhibits from the Palace district, especially from the monastery of St.Simon and St. Jude. For example, the Credo altar and a number of stained glass windows. Since 1992, the Palace district, together with Goslar's Old Town and the Rammelsberg mine, have been designated as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Henry Moore's sculpture, Goslar Warrior 1973–1974, has stood in the palace gardens since 1975. It was named for the town after Moore received Goslar's Goslarer Kaisering Art Prize in 1975. On warmer summer evenings, the large meadow around the two statues in front of the Imperial Palace used to be a popular meeting place for all kinds of people. Today there is a ban on alcohol and assembly anywhere in the palace grounds.